Welcome to Quick Stop F1. My name is Nyasha and you could have been anywhere in the world, but you're here with us. We appreciate that. Thank you for watching. In this video, we've got to talk about a couple of things that have gone on. Obviously, they're talking about Charles Leclerc potentially leaving Ferrari. And of course, we're going to have to touch on our boy, the godfather of grid pets, Roscoe, unfortunately passing away. But before we get into that, like the video and that, subscribe to the channel, all of them things, they're much appreciated. So, let's get into it. Now look, rumours of Charles Leclerc leaving Ferrari. The rumours are that Nicolas Tot, who is famously Jean Tot of Ferrari, ex-Ferrari and FIA fame, it's his son who manages Charles Leclerc, was seen in the paddock at the last race talking to people from Aston Martin, McLaren and Mercedes. So essentially what it looks like is, if you put two and two together, you're going to get leaving, apparently, because you've got a shite car in Ferrari. You've got a driver that's giving his prime years to this team and is nowhere near achieving his goal of winning the title. Let's not fuck around here. Charles Leclerc has been at Ferrari since 2019. It is now 2025. His closest chance of winning the title was 2022. If the car is not up to scratch in this next run of regulations, he could be 30 plus before seeing a title challenging car again. So it would behoove the manager of Charles Leclerc to talk to people who may be in the driving seat. And those that are going to be in the driving seat, clearly Mercedes, contractual issues there. Who knows what's going to happen with George Russell? You'd expect him to sign, but is it going to be a one-year contract or is it going to be the multi-year deal that George wants? You then have also McLaren, the best team in the sport right now. If it's an engine regulation next year, Mercedes engines are the best engines. Does that mean McLaren with Mercedes engines are the team to be at? How long can this Norris and Piastri axis survive without before one of them seeks to leave, or if one of them is kind of pushed to leave? Who knows? If you're winning the Constructors' title by a record margin, you would think that McLaren would not want to get rid of two drivers in who they've invested heavily in, both monetarily and in time. So then he looks at Aston Martin. Could that be a shrewd move? Fernando Alonso is on the way out. We know that. Likely to retire next season, maybe the season after that. Does that mean that there's an opening there? There is a marquee seat with Adrian Newey designing your cars, Honda designing your engines, and we all know that the Honda engine is a reliable and good engine. Who knows what could happen with the new regulations? So Charles Leclerc looking around at somewhere other than Ferrari, which, I mean, I've only been a Ferrari fan for the last 9 months, and trust me, it's a shit show over there. I can't even imagine Charles Leclerc, how he feels having been there for 7 years now, all of the fuckery he's had to go through, the lack of race-winning cars he's had to sustain, whilst having this dream of taking Ferrari to the top. So, on the face of it, it makes sense. However, guys, it's bullshit. Like, this is F1 silly season to a T. Everyone's manager talks to everyone. Everyone wants to know the lay of the land. Just because Charles Leclerc is committed to Ferrari doesn't mean that he's not obviously going to look out at what's happening outside just to know what's going on in the team. His manager would be a bad manager if they didn't look at what was out there just as a lay of the land when negotiating their own contracts with Ferrari, which I'm sure Charles Leclerc will do. So just in that sense, It's not going to happen. But GP Blog have come out and said that actually the true focus of said conversation revolved around Norwegian Martinius Stenshorn, a McLaren junior who happened to be promoted from Formula 3 to Formula 2 that weekend. Aluni Bravi is in charge of the British team's driver development program, and Todd manages the young Norwegian ace. So, look, it could be that he's looking at potential drives for his young Norwegian driver, or he's just doing a job as a manager. But I would be very surprised if Charles Leclerc ended up anywhere else other than Ferrari pretty much for the rest of his career. I think it would be an absolute astonishment on Ferrari's capabilities if neither Charles Leclerc or Lewis Hamilton win the driver's title within the next 3 years. But it'll be an even bigger black stain on Ferrari if they had a junior prospect as good as Charles Leclerc, who, let's face it, I have my reservations about Charles Leclerc compared to some of the other drivers in terms of his mistakes, but end of the day, if you were to give Charles Leclerc a championship winning car, I think he would deliver a championship. However, they've not given him that. And I think it would be an absolute travesty if Ferrari, with a homegrown driver who is absolutely, probably beyond their own self-interest, is committed to that team. I think it'd be a shame if Ferrari didn't capitalize on that and providing with a race-winning car. So let's see what happens with that. I think it'll be interesting to see. What do you guys think? Do you think Charles Leclerc is going to leave Ferrari? Do you think there's a place for Charles Leclerc outside of Ferrari? It would be a seismic move for someone. The thing is, Verstappen is the key in all of this, I think. I think Verstappen and George Russell, in the next couple of years, not only will those two likely be fighting for world championships, let's say if Russell stays at Mercedes and they have a good car, and obviously Verstappen stays at Red Bull, and let's see how it goes. Verstappen and George Russell's movements, based on what happens next season, really could be the domino that sets off potentially some of the biggest driver moves we see in Formula One, as all the top teams maybe look to reconfigure their driver lineups. I say all the top teams, Lando and Oscar are locked in, but could we see Red Bull try to poach either Lando or Oscar to bring into Red Bull to replace Max if he does ever leave? Let's see. I think it'll be interesting to see in the future what happens with that. Look, I was supposed to do a podcast on Monday, and it sounds weird to say that someone's pet passed away, so you didn't feel right, but it didn't feel right, I guess. Like, I just didn't. I just didn't feel. I didn't feel right talking about Formula One. Formula One felt quite insignificant, I would say, on Monday. In that it's really tough. I think there's a big issue in F1 with parasocial relationships, and I think that the parasocial relationship some people have with drivers is not healthy. I think it's really unhealthy for both the driver and the person, the fan. And as I've got older, I think I've tried to kind of stay away from, I guess, feeding frenzy around Lewis Hamilton, and obviously being passionate about being a Lewis Hamilton fan, but not looking to feed into frenzy about Lewis Hamilton, and also like not looking to capitalize on on anything to do with Lewis Hamilton. And even if it's going bad, saying things that I know will be like good for my business by talking about Lewis in a bad way or whatever, right? Or in any way when things aren't, it's hard to describe. So we come to Monday, and obviously the news comes that Roscoe's passed away. And obviously those who know, I have my own dog, Teddy. So fortunately for me, that's my first dog. He's quite young. He's 7, I think now. Relatively young. God, he's not actually that young. But I've not had any major health scares with Teddy yet. You know, touch wood, I've not had any, and I've not obviously had to consider putting him down. But the thought of that weighed quite heavy on my heart when talking about podcasting, and I didn't feel right podcasting on that day, and I just kind of wanted to give it space and give everyone their own space to kind of mourn in their own way. Anyway, going back to what I was saying earlier, normally I think before I started watching Formula One, and I think before I started making content on Formula One, let's say if I was just someone who wasn't online, like at all, and I heard Lewis Hamilton, and I didn't have a dog, I think I would lack a lot of empathy around. I would sympathize with Lewis, but I don't think I would empathize with Lewis, and I don't think I'd empathize with the outpouring of grief that we've seen. But what's crazy is that because it's a pet, right? And it wasn't our pet, it was Lewis's pet. And, you know, how close are we to Lewis to feel the way we feel about his pet, right? I feel, even now, talking about this, I feel a little bit like uncomfortable because I'm like, is this something I even should be talking about, right? I think what I want to talk to mostly is that what really stood out for me this weekend is just how proud I am to be in this fan base, and to see the level of respect and adoration and love that's being poured into Lewis and has been poured into Lewis through what has been, let's face it, since 2021. It's not been great for Lewis. Obviously, you know, you can say he gets paid millions of pounds to do what he does. He makes millions in endorsements. He has millions in investments. He's one of the most attractive people on the planet. He's never short of company. He has the life a lot of us would wish to have. He has achieved the things a lot of us would wish to achieve. But since 2021, it's been difficult. Sporting wise, I think it's been difficult, you know, and I think the effect on Lewis we've seen in the outpouring of emotion in after Silverstone, right? We saw in the outpouring of emotion with his father, you know, or just the moments with his father after Abu Dhabi 21, and you know, and then all, you know, the comments in the media that he's made, especially before the summer break, even this year, but even last year, he was saying quite similar things. It's not been an easy 4 years for Lewis at all. But TeamLH as a fan base and feeling part of a community that like supports someone more than just when the winning happens. I think I've seen more love given to Lewis Hamilton when he's been losing than when he was winning from the fan base. It's like we don't even have to say anything. There's no like organized, we're going to do this, we're going to do this. there's just this collective knowledge that the love and adoration we have for this driver, we're going to pour it into him. Even if he doesn't see it himself, we're going to pour it into him, and we're going to uplift him, and we're going to show him love no matter what's going on. And I think nothing's really encapsulated that more than the reaction to Roscoe's passing away. And I can't even imagine what Lewis is going through, especially as someone who's spoken about mental health, being on the road, how lonely it can get. We've seen how close he is to Angela and the reason for that. And I think the fact that Coco in the beginning was able to travel around with him, you have to remember at a time where, he'd obviously broken up with, I can't remember her name. I'm so sorry. Nicole. Um, he moved teams, or maybe I think maybe was he still in McLaren? I think he was still in McLaren. And it was in a tumultuous period in his life when he got Roscoe. And I think it really probably helped center him and give him that company and give him that kind of purpose off the track that I think he was probably craving since he came into Formula One. And from there he was then able, to move to Mercedes and get all of like the out of car stuff that he'd done, like the fashion, the music, and so forth. But Roscoe, really, you have to really realize, like, we've not really seen a pet attached to an athlete the way we have Roscoe to Lewis Hamilton. Imagine if you were, no footballer travels with their pet. No NFL player travels with their pet. No basketball player travels with their pet. We saw a high-level athlete travel with their pet whilst winning title after title after title. It's something that wasn't even allowed. Bernie Ecclestone I can't remember who tweeted it, but shout out whoever tweeted this, like, in his the best thing that Bernie Ecclestone ever done, granted Roscoe a VIP pass to be able to be in the paddock. That was the effect of Roscoe. We can't forget Coco as well, who Lewis also adopted, who unfortunately passed away a while ago now. Coco passed away. But I would say that seeing Lewis grow into the man he was, and he is, and him having Roscoe by his side. Roscoe's like the real constant by his side. And to see a top level athlete smash it time and time again, and then they've got a bulldog running around with them, barely running around with them, was just such a great thing to see. And it was quite cool to see at time, before social media as well. We didn't really see a lot of like that side of humanity from Lewis. We didn't really see that a lot before. Even in the Snapchat era, it was very braggadocious. It wasn't like, very like, the humanity side that we kind of see now in his like elder statesman era. So in his own way, Roscoe is a history maker. There will never be another Roscoe. And I think a lot of the other guys, Charles Leclerc and anyone else who kind of end up bringing their dog or, pet to the grid, they will always kind of be Roscoe's sons. These are Roscoe's sons. And I just think what a life that dog must have lived. What a life, like traveling around the world. People talk about him eating vegan food. I'm sure it was the finest vegan food you could possibly imagine. I'm sure there's some of these meals are probably better than the meals that I eat on a daily basis, and I love to cook. So, like, I'm sure that was, he lived a life, and I think for him to get to the age he got to shows that he was really well taken care of, despite the average age I think is around 10 for that breed of dog. And Lewis, again adopted him, didn't buy him, he adopted him, which I think was great as well. It's a great message. And I always just think, when you adopt a dog, you really do like save a life, and you're able to give a life to an animal that, unfortunately, probably up to that point hasn't had a great life. So, man, yeah, it's weird talking about it. It's not my dog. I don't really know Lewis, but I am, yeah, I am quite emotional about it. So, but I think, yeah, going back to my original point, and I guess I'll end on this. The great thing about TeamLH is we are such a community. We're such a community. I feel it myself when I've been down. The love from the community. We support each other. We uplift each other. If people want to talk bad about someone in our house, yeah, we're going to bite back, because we don't fuck with people who fuck with our family. And Roscoe was family. And that's what happens. When family members go, you rally round. You rally round each other. You rally round the person and the family affected, and you uplift them. You tell them their love. You remind them of the good times, and you keep their spirits up. And that's, I think, for me, the greatest thing that I've taken away from this is just seeing how much of a family we are. And yeah, in families we fight, and yeah, in families we might not get along, and in families we might not agree with everything everyone says. We might not like that other family down the road, that Dutch family down the road that keeps fucking stepping on our grass, and their Christmas lights might be better than ours at the moment. We don't fucking get along with them, fine, but we are our family. And I think that's a really cool thing to see. And I hope and I know that Lewis Hamilton has seen all of that, and all we can do is look. Not really drinking that much anymore, so we're gonna pour one out for the homie. Can you see that? There you go. That's for you, Roscoe. Cheers to Roscoe. All right, Peter, a real one. I'm sure you've got all the doggy treats in heaven. I'm sure you're chilling with Coco up there. I'm sure you're getting mad massages and all of them things there, bro. So yeah. Well, look, that's it for now. We're back tomorrow with some more F1 news. If you like what you see, let me know in the comments below. Subscribe to the channel. Thank you to all the supporters as well. I keep forgetting to mention that. Really appreciate you guys. You guys have no idea. And thank you for watching. Remember, no matter what life throws at you, keep it on the black stuff. Until next time, take care.